Pursuit of Growth live chat number 6. I'm Greg Brinkley, and as always, I'm joined by.
Over here in the northern part of Frisco is Sammy Gonzalez, coming straight from our weekly Zoom recording.
Nice, and I guess I should say that I'm broadcasting from near downtown Dallas and uptown, and excited for tonight's conversation. We're going to be talking about relationships, but it's not probably the relationship that you initially think about. And so most people, when the word relationship is thrown out, they immediately think about a romantic relationship or a dating relationship. We're talking about a much larger scope. And so we're talking about everything from your family to your friends to your neighbors to your work colleagues, just the people that are involved in your life, and why focusing on building strong relationships is so important to our well-being, especially during the current climate that we find ourselves in with the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah, and to give everybody another frame of reference, today is Wednesday, May 5th. And so we're kind of what some people consider like maybe getting to the backside of all this. Like we've flattened the curve, which will mean something to a lot of people. And to those of you watching in the future might not mean anything at all, but some new lingo and terminology. But the reason why I think this topic is very important is because it's it's a lot of what people are missing today during this current state of what we're in is their personal relationships, and that's everything from those personal relationships at work. That's as a family, friends, and so I really want to highlight some of those different things and some stories that have come out of here, and especially with us here in the last couple of weeks. That we can discuss, and then want to provide some actionable items for you to take home with you, or to take along your travels with you towards the end as we wrap up. So does that sound good to you, Greg?
Yeah, I love it. And one of the things that I think about when we talk about relationships, and in the book that you and I wrote, which is available on sale now at www.livetpg.com, we have a chapter on relationships. And one of the stories that we highlight is actually a Harvard study that started back in like the 1930s. It was actually an 80-year study that they put in place. And ultimately, what their goal was to find out what variables have the most important impact on a person's overall well-being, their joy, their peace of mind, their happiness. And as you can imagine, there's many, 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 many variables that go into this. And over the span of 80 years, they studied thousands and thousands of people and their children and their children's children. And at the end of this comprehensive overview, and in fact, you can actually Google Harvard study, give away the spoiler, on relationships, and you can actually read the results, and you can see a really interesting TED talk about this study. But far and away, they found out that the number one variable in a person's overall well-being was the quality of the relationships. And so that includes their partner, that includes the people that are in their lives, that inner circle of close family and friends. And then, for lack of a longer definition, their community. So their neighbors, the people they spend time with. Maybe it's their church, maybe it's their sporting leagues they're a part of. Maybe it's the people they come in contact periodically over the course of several weeks, months, or years. But the overall quality of their relationships played the biggest part in their overall happiness and well-being. So I think that just points to, we should be prioritizing, placing emphasis on how can we build, grow, and strengthen the relationships that we have in our lives. And that's one thing that I'm excited to talk to you about today, Sammy.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny you mentioned that. This is the sixth recorded live stream, and it's actually the chapter on relationships is chapter 6. So funny coincidence there. We didn't plan.
A little bit of coincidence there. I like that.
Right. I don't mind pointing those out. So if you're studying at home, studying along at home, that's the chapter you need to go to. I wanted to highlight two different stories that I think I'll tell one, and then Greg, I'd love your feedback and some comments, and then we can go into the other one. But the first story I want to say is that it's amazing when we're in this world right now. So we're pretty much at a what they call a shelter in place or a safer at home here in the Dallas Metroplex. And what that means for context is that limit your outside contact, limit the places you need to go. It's safer to be here and that kind of stuff. It's safer to know your network and also provide less contact with other people. So when all this started happening, I know that this really adjusted the way that I do business and the way that I am as a person. And so my world was kind of flipped upside down because I'm used to like having coffee meetings as part of work. I'm used to going out to lunches. I'm used to networking events and group meetings and all that kind of stuff. So in doing this, I had to quickly pivot. So a lot of my professional contacts and career has gone to something like this: a lot of Zoom meetings, a lot of Google Hangouts, even in preparation for getting book to the printer and all that kind of stuff. Greg and we've been in contact constantly via these video chats. But a place where I think that a different relationship has really taken off is in my personal life and in my neighborhood. So I live in a neighborhood, and we have rear entry garages. And so like we don't typically park in the front, and we don't really see our neighbors a lot. But as everyone's been kind of getting outside and walking around, I know when at first everyone was very scared. Like we wouldn't even walk on the same side of the street as people. Like we would go to the other side, and everyone would. Like everyone was just kind of staying away from each other. Now, as things have kind of loosened a little bit and guidelines have changed, a lot more people, like as this has progressed, a lot more people have gone out and done some stuff and started hanging out again, staying socially distant, etc. But we really got to know our neighbors. And one neighbor in particular is right next to us. He's got, I think, 5 kids, and most of them are older, but he's got 3 of them that are still here, and they're in high school, about to be in college. But we really got to know him because he would be outside and we'd talk, and they'd be outside and we'd talk. And so it kind of went back old school. It went back to knowing your neighbor, right? Someone we had met, but we didn't know him, right? They would do everything from bring cookies over to we've been trading gifts with them. They do little surprise drop offs for gifts for my girls of like coloring books or whatever, that kind of stuff too. But really being very neighborly. Anytime we're outside, we say hi, we chat. We've sat outside the porch, like had a beer together, that kind of stuff. So it's been fun to really engage with people. And I think that's where a great bright side of this is, and something that we can carry on is those personal relationships that we talk about that are so key. That's a natural tendency and a tribal mentality that we have as humans. And so I love the fact that you've stated that study and that we included in the book, because I feel it. I'm living it right now. And I know that you are too.
Yeah, I love that. And I think one thing that I've realized is as a result of this shelter in place, lockdown, quarantine, however you want to phrase it, in some ways it's eliminated distractions. And so we have more time to focus on maybe the things that we really care about. And so while many of us that are fortunate enough to have jobs that weren't affected to the point to where they were taken away from us, our professional life may have become more active and we may have more on our plate. But when we got home from work, a lot of our entertainment and our ability to be able to go and do things was, of course, taken away. And so with that, I think you can also appreciate the fact that it opened up new opportunities. And a lot of those opportunities are just what you mentioned, just really just spending time, because it opened up time to be able to reach out to people, to talk to people, to get to know people. And you had a common denominator to be able to talk about. It's a very easy conversation starter. Just say, hey, how is your family? How is your work? How are you adjusting to what's happened with this? And we talk about, Sammy, a lot in a business coaching group that we're in, the analogy of, we're all in the same storm, but we're all in a different boat. And being able to talk about how our boats are different, I think has really been something that's made it easy for people just to communicate. And, I look at my life personally. I live alone here in downtown Dallas. And so my neighbors, being that I live in an apartment complex in downtown, you think it would be really easy to meet a lot of people, but it's kind of one of those circumstances where when people get home, they kind of go in their apartments and you really don't see them again. Um, but I've noticed over the last several weeks when we're out in some of the common areas, people are more engaging and they're more willing to stop and talk because you can see they're craving that connection. So it's allowed me to meet different people that live in my complex and people that maybe live down the street from me. But the biggest variable that I've seen is my reconnection with important friends from throughout my life. And whether it's Friday and Saturday nights hosting Zoom or Google Hangout calls with high school friends, college friends, or just people that you and I know, Sammy, here in the Metroplex, I've connected with more friends and family over the last 2 months than I have in the last year. And it's not even a close comparison. And I think, quite honestly, one of the reasons why I feel like I'm in really good spirits and really good shape throughout this entire, um, shelter in place COVID-19 lockdown is because I've never felt lonely and I've never felt like people don't have my back because I'm being able to talk to people and share, the struggles and challenges that I'm facing. I'm able to hear their struggles and trials. We're able to help and support each other. And I think really what it comes down to, and I'll wrap up kind of that particular story with, I think there's one item that's probably the most important variable in strong relationships, and that's time. So giving time to relationships, actually allocating time to talk, visit, if you can, spend time doing things together, things that you enjoy, but just time is so important. And so I've really been challenging myself, where can I sacrifice some of my time to place in relationships and really building those things? And it's been a pretty cool thing for me these past 2 months.
Yeah, I love that you bring up the fact about time because very similar to that conversation that you or those topics you were just talking about. My role is very much a work from home role right now, and my wife's is as well. My kids' school is also. So we've all been in this house for 2 months straight. And so like we find that there's times to do some other things, like a quick walk around the block, refreshes the day if you need to, or step out and go have a picnic for lunch or something like that. So again, nurturing those relationships, but it does take a lot of time and care. And it's something that you should continue to do as well. I'm probably the worst at it when it comes to late evenings because I grind for work, and then I grind for this and that and the other and all these other things that I can continue to go. So with evening times are typically condensed for me down to working, but I do make some very dedicated time to certain nights. They're no work nights, if at all possible. And the weekends, spending as much time around friends and family as possible, especially down this current situation. So that, and I think the ability to be open to meeting new people and talking to people, and it's something that I was really bad at when I was younger. I did not feel like I was very not outgoing is the wrong word, but I wasn't quick to just go and meet someone and talk to someone. And that's probably revisionist history. I probably was my whole life, but now I really crave it. Like if I see someone and I like their shirt, I'm like, hey, nice shirt, just something like
Yeah.
that. You never know what that can do for somebody, what can brighten their day or whatever. So another quick story is that today I had to go run an errand over lunch, and I just happened to swing by at the end of my block. And this lady has a beautiful like flower gardens, and she's got a bunch of potted plants and all this kind of stuff. Really, really nice yard. She wins the Yard of the Month club over here in our neighborhood and all that kind of stuff. But she happened to be outside, and so I stopped and I just I looked at her, I was admiring the garden, and I said, you know what? I'm just going to tell her that I admire that. I'm just going to tell her that I appreciate it. And I was like, no, I'll just kind of keep trying. I was like, no, you know what? It's like, now's your chance to make a good impression, make somebody feel good. Like they've done some hard work. She's literally out there doing hard work now. Show her you appreciate her. Show her you appreciate her efforts. So I did. Just rolled out the window, And I said, hey, just by the way, we've been walking around the neighborhood for a while now, and we always stop by your yard and look at it and really like everything you have going on and really appreciate all that. And I'm an amateur farmer, which I have another funny story for you, Greg. But I said, we're going to start planting some stuff in the backyard, and you've inspired us. And then started to tell us for about 10 minutes, tell me about who she is, what she does, the fact that she's retired and she loves gardening and all that. And then she wrapped up with, and this is all at a stop sign. And she wrapped up with like, hey, later on this afternoon, if you have time, why don't you bring your kids by? I'll give you all a couple of flowers that y'all can replant. And I said, okay, well, we'll see if we can do that. Well, long story short, got busy, didn't make it by the afternoon, all that kind of stuff. But went back later this evening and knocked on her door. And sure enough, she was like, oh, I was wondering if you were going to show up. And she came outside and she took to the girls and took them around in her garden, let them pick fresh little tiny strawberries and ate those. She plucked a piece of asparagus and ate it and showed them like snap peas and all this kind of stuff. And it was only like 30-minute time frame. And sure enough, she had these bulbs for us. She gave them to us and said, hey, I hope this inspires you to garden. She told us how to do it and all that. And all of that came from the fact that I was open to having that conversation. I didn't have time to have the conversation by any means, so I thought. But that's what it also takes when you're meeting new people and putting yourself out there or building good relationships is one, be interested in what they're doing. If they're doing it, more than likely it's important to them. Number two is don't be afraid to tell people, hey, nice shirt, find some of those conversation starters or, hey, great garden. Like you're inspiring us to do that. So I think that you had some comments on that too earlier when we were chatting about this too, but I know you've found some great ways and you've inspired me throughout the years too, that, we go to networking events. You've always got some good stories to tell, some games that we play that are always fun to spark up some conversation as well.
Yeah, that makes me think of several stories. And before I share one of mine, we talk about this in the book, and I'm a firm believer in that. When I look at the relationships in my life, I've kind of categorized them in three intrinsic circles. So I've got like that inner circle of my my very immediate family and my closest friends that I tend to spend the most time with, that tend to be the people that are most involved in my life. And then I have a second group of friends and family that are extremely important and people that I absolutely love. But for whatever reason, life takes us all in different directions. So we may not see each other or spend as much time together, although they're just as important. And in some cases, some of those people have been in my inner circle in seasons of my life. And maybe because we moved away or just our lives changed, things kind of come and go. So there's not a difference in terms of how much that person means to me, what circle they're in. It just kind of goes to where they're at in my current frame of life. And then there's the third circle that's a big circle that's really people that are more acquaintances, people that maybe you've worked with, that well. You may not see, but just several times a year or connect with every now and then. But they're really important. And in many cases, most of the people that are in my inner circle started out in my third. And I think in many cases, that third group of people are the most interesting people because you have so much to learn about and they have so much to learn about you as well. So whether those again are the neighbors and that we come across, the people that we meet at the grocery store, you never know an opportunity you may have to help somebody or they may have to help you. And there's so much value in just relationships. And I love this. There's a saying that it's not about who you know, it's about who knows you, type thing. And I really believe that just becoming well known, just meeting people, just offers so much benefit to your life and the benefit of others. And I think it kind of goes to what you said. You just started a conversation, and so as I'm kind of going about my day. And in fact, I think I mentioned in a live chat we did earlier that one of my new favorite things I do every evening is I go on what I call a gratitude walk, where I just kind of walk through the city block where I live and go through a park. And I just kind of go through different things of the day that I'm grateful for and just things that I'm looking forward to in my life that I'm grateful to be able to participate in. And in doing that, I'm able to just cross a lot of people. And so again, I don't want to be the weird, creepy guy that's like, that's starting conversations with people that may not want to talk, or people that are, you know, doing things and they don't need to necessarily have someone kind of butting in unannounced. But it's just like what you said. It's just being sincere and honest and giving compliments, or just, if you see something that you can see somebody's interested in, just bringing up a conversation. And, for me, the easiest thing are animals, because as I'm walking, I tend to be the only person that's not walking with a dog. And of course, every time you walk by somebody with a dog, what does that dog do? They run up to you, they jump on you, whatever. They want to come and smell you. And then the person walking that dog, their first thing is, oh, I'm so sorry, because they feel like they don't want to make you upset that their dog violated your space. Well, what a great conversation opener. Just be like, hey, what's your dog's name? Or what a cool looking dog. Like, what's your story? How did you get this dog? I'm interested in getting a dog. And I've done that. I can't tell you how many times, and met so many people just by asking them about their dog. And now when I see them, we give kind of a wave or a hey, or now I know the dog's name. And I'm embarrassed to say this. In most cases, I remember the dog's name and I don't remember the people's name. Um, but it's just, I think it's just showing general interest in people just goes such a long way. And especially, I'm hoping that in this day and age that we're living in now, where we've all gone through this lockdown, this crisis, and again, all in the same storm, but all in different boats. I hope we all realize that a universal tool that we can all use to make our boats better is relationships and people, and just getting to know the people around you, and really focusing on building the relationships, the people that are in that inner circle with you too.
Yeah, you mentioned those people that are on that outer edge and that outer ring that you mentioned. I like that analogy, and I'm glad that it's in the book too. Is because I see that too. One of my inspirations in life was the late great Anthony Bourdain, and one of the things that I always appreciated about him, and the reason why I would put him up on my kind of mentor slash idol wall, even though he never knew who I was, is the fact that he was really good at talking to people, really good at having conversations with people. And another one of the people that I follow very closely is Joe Rogan, and he's someone that has an award-winning podcast, and is very inspirational. Just in the fact that he can sit down and talk to anybody, he's very adaptable, and that's a key factor for also being good at talking to people and building relationships too. Being genuine, being open, being honest, and being true to who you are, and understanding who you are, and being self-aware is a big component of that too. So don't ever try to, and this, maybe we can save some of these for topics later, but or for tactics later. Don't ever try to be something you're not when you're meeting someone new. So if somebody is, let's just say, I'm totally making this up, right? Maybe they're really into building kites, and then you are going around saying like, "Oh, me too," and then just for the sake of meeting somebody, that's under false pretense. That's gonna, one, probably make you look a little silly, but then two, like you're then going to have to rely on yourself to either learn a lot about kites to see this person again, or you're going to have to finally one day come clean. But I just think that's a good lessons learned that you just mentioned too, about just being open and saying hi, and honestly being a little prepared to have those conversations. And I'm sure it helps when you're on that gratitude walk to be really open and honest with yourself, and then be open for some of those conversations.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned Anthony Bourdain and Joe Rogan. I think for me, two of the things that I've learned most from them is they're so good with people because they're genuinely curious. And if you notice, one of the ways they build relationships with people very quickly, people that they met literally either on a podcast or on a TV show, you can see by the end of that time frame that they have a legitimate, in most cases, relationship with these people, because they're asking questions that they're generally interested in. And they also realize the questions they're asking are important to the people they're asking them to.
Hmm.
And I like what you talked about with being prepared. And so I think, and at least in my world, I try to think about, what are the things that are important to me, and not just the items or the topics, but the why behind it. And I think those are easy things to start it with. So like, for instance, your analogy with the kite, so you're talking to someone and their passion is kite building or gardening, or a certain sport. Just the easiest questions are the questions that we started with as children. How, what, when, where, and why. And just be genuinely curious. Why did you get into this? What inspired you to do that? How did you learn how to do this? I mean, all those are very simple questions that then spark other questions and other conversations. And it just makes it really easy to be able to open conversations with people. And, quite honestly, and I've told this to some of the young folks that I've met over my life in terms of like even dating or even trying to like, how do I approach a girl that I'm interested in? And I'm just transparent. Learn from me, who made every mistake in the book, and probably still does. But some of the most easiest quote unquote pickup lines are just your most basic questions if they're candid and they're curious. And just keep it simple and go from there. And it's amazing what you learn about people.
Okay. So you mean something like, "Hey, what's up?" It's not a good line, right?
Yeah, you might if that's your go-to. Um, I might challenge you to work on a few more words to add on the end of the "what's up." Maybe that's your opener, but maybe throw another sentence or two behind that.
I'm pretty sure that's the verbiage I used when I first met my wife. So I may be able to vouch for some of the people that have a little bit less luck with that, right?
Well, then again, what do I know, right? So it worked for you, but hey, at the end of the day, you know what you did? You at least took initiative and you opened a conversation. So whether it was a great line or a bad line, it worked. So way to go.
For sure. Well, man, with that, I think it's a great conversation that we've had about this, about relationships. Hopefully, we've given some people some insights, some thoughts about how we learn about relationships, how we go about our relationships. Um, and, one of the things about the pursuit of growth in the book, especially when you go on and order it online at livetpg.com, you'll get this fancy shiny copy here. Um, but at the end of every chapter, you'll see some of the very similar um, listing of different, almost like to-do or action items. So we want to recap every chapter so that you can remember some of the things you should be doing, or some of the things we think you should be doing, I should say. But with this too, even in these chats, we want to have some thoughts to share. So I want us to kind of share a couple different things. So what are some of the key takeaways of the action items that we want to leave people with, so that this can be a useful piece of content that they consume? And if you want to, I'll let you go first, and then I'll piggyback off you, and then we can wrap this thing up so that people have some nice takeaways.
Yeah, I've got three action items that have served me well, that I wanted to share, and it's a little bit of a recap of what we just talked about. But one, I would really encourage people to spend some time thinking about who are the people that are in your inner circle, who are the people that matter most to you in your life in the current situation that you're in, whether it's people you're living with, maybe it's your closest friends or your family, and ask yourself, how can you best serve them? How can you best strengthen that relationship with those people? And find a few things to do and act upon it. It will bring you back so much value. And we've heard the old analogy of, you are who the five people you spend the most time with. Well, if those five people that you spend the most time with know that you're somebody that's got their back, that's encouraging them, that's building them up, it's just going to make the whole thing better. Second, I encourage you to think about people that are important to you that maybe you don't see on a consistent basis, or maybe you don't interact with as much as your inner circle. And especially now in the circumstance that we're in during this COVID-19 pandemic, just reach out and just connect, whether it's a phone call, a text message, an email, or a post on their social media. Maybe just share a memory that you really appreciate with them. Not to get too far off my action items, but I've got to share this. One of my high school and college friends, that I talk to probably 3 or 4 times a year, and he still will be always one of my all-time best friends. But we just see each other once or twice a year. He sent me a link to a YouTube video and said, "Man, I heard this song and it made me think of you, Greg Brinkley. And man, cheers to you. I can't wait to see you again." And it was a song that said, the name of the song is "May All Your Favorite Bands Stay Together." And it's kind of like It's kind of like a bro love song, to be honest. And just about like just dudes, man, I hope you're doing well. And man, it really just it made me feel awesome. And so do what he did. My buddy Casey Coulter, I'll give him a shout out. Do what Casey Coulter did for me and just reach out to people and just make them feel good, man. And then the third thing is think about the people just in your neighborhood, in your office building, in your community, and maybe just reach out and start a conversation with a handful. Just test it out, see what happens. And I think one of the best ways to do it is what you mentioned earlier, Sammy. Just start out with a compliment, start out with an affirmation, and hey, see if that relationship that may start out in your third circle could eventually even grow more into your inner circle. Who knows? So those are my takeaways.
Well, those are really, really strong takeaways. Some of mine are going to parallel yours, but I wanted to make sure I mentioned them. I think first and foremost, be open, um, and be open with yourself, and be open to understanding who others are. Not everybody is like you. Even your closest friends are probably not as similar as you think they are, especially as you start to dig in and learn a little bit more about them. So it goes to my second point is to be curious. And I think you hit the nail on the head there. And about being curious, about asking good questions, just having a genuine interest and spark in life. Like the pursuit of growth is all about growing and developing as a person, and it's also about stretching yourself for goals and you know personal growth and development, and that's a fine. But then also just make sure that like you've got that dedicated plan to stay curious, to stay interested. Don't let life beat you down to where you don't care about anything else anymore. So that's find some people to follow, maybe some people to listen to, find some new good bro songs you want to listen to,
Uh-huh.
and share with other people too. Maybe there's a big bro song Facebook group that you can join where y'all just talk about the song. And hey, I'm down with that. That's cool with me. Um, Also, another thing is from my story that I highlighted about the garden is take initiative, and put it on yourself. Some days you don't have time. Some days it's just giving that little bit of extra effort. And we've talked about this before, but you know what? Had I not had that conversation and just stopped and said, "Hey, thank you so much for the upkeep of your garden. You've inspired us." I would not have a bushel full of irises to plant. I actually would not have had my daughters in her backyard tasting a fresh strawberry. That kind of stuff that they never had. They were both so just intrigued and amazed by it all, to where we've already started our little garden and we're going to continue to add stuff. So, breaking news for you, Greg. I don't know, but this is one of my new hobbies and experiences. But I am leaning into gardening, something I never thought I would do. But I remember my Uncle Joe used to always have rose bushes. And I remember he used to always take care of those rose bushes, something I said I'd always do. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to start my own little garden. My grandpa was a watermelon and cantaloupe farmer on the side. So let's see if I've got this running through my veins, and maybe got a little Farmer Sam in me. Um, and then the last two little takeaways. Number one is find your circles. So look at your inner circle, write it down on paper. Look at that secondary circle of people that you hadn't necessarily talked to in a while, but they were close friends. Just outline that. And then who's that third big picture? Who's that third big circle that you can look out to? Because maybe somebody has moved from the inside out, or maybe someone's moved from the outside in, and vice versa. So reach out, talk, connect. But the last little thing too is just be genuine. Be genuine in your outreach. Be genuine in your compliments. If you don't say you like my shirt if you really don't like my shirt, or that kind of stuff. People can see right through it. But be genuine, be interested, be curious, and those are my takeaways. So be open, be curious, take the initiative, outline your circles, and then be genuine. And I think that that's a great way to forming good, long-lasting relationships, um, from now and forever.
Yeah. Well, I hope that regardless of what we've said, I hope people realize that bottom line, we are better together than we are alone. And so work on relationships, use the pursuit of growth, buy the book, www.livetpg.com. chapter 6 goes much more in depth on relationships. And man, good conversation tonight, Sammy. I always enjoyed just chatting with you about these type of things. Just even in the evening, man, just kind of fires me up and gets me thinking again, just in the right mindset. And man, let's move forth and continue to grow.
Sounds good, man. Well, on that note, I'm going to let you wrap this all up for us. Maybe give us one grand takeaway or anything like that. If not, just say peace, and I'll cut the recording here soon. But I appreciate everyone that's taking the time to leave a comment, leave a note to us on LinkedIn is where we typically post these. We're going to be sharing them on our Facebook page as we build out the community some more. So please share, please like, please subscribe, all that good business. We appreciate all of you, and we appreciate you taking time to listen.
Yeah, so my final takeaway will be, so anyone that's listening to this right now, leave us a comment, reach out. Let's start building that relationship with our community, with the pursuit of growth and Live TPG. And let us know your thoughts, let us know your challenges, let us know your successes. And man, let's just chat. Peace.